And a very happy Thursday to you today. And welcome to this Altenew Live. My name is Sarah, and I'm really excited to be hanging out with you for the next hour or so. We'll see how we go and have a little fun with some stamping and die cutting techniques. So it's great to see folks are jumping in. Today, we will be joined by the lovely Joanna from Altenew. She's going to be the magic behind the badge, and we'll be popping in reminders and just double checking on things as we go. And she's one step ahead of the game, reminding everyone that if you share today's video while we are live, you can be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. And when you do that, please, after you share, just post in the comments and let us know that you shared and how you shared. And then you'll go into the pot for a chance at the $15 gift certificate. So would make a really nice way to treat yourself this weekend, I think. Hi, Sue. Hi, Jen. Hi, Stacy. Ziamara, Jenny. It's nice to see everybody. Hi, Nancy. Sunny but cool San Francisco, one of my favorite cities. I love San Francisco. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Jane. I hope everybody is doing really well. It's nice to see some familiar names in there and also one or two new ones. So welcome if you are new to these Altenew Lives. They're a lot of fun, and welcome also if you have joined us before. It's great to have you. Great to have you back. Great to have you. Tony is from Northeastern Pennsylvania. Nice to see you joining. I'm here in Hamburg, Germany, and we've got folks from all over the world. I think I just saw Sweden flashing by as all the comments are scrolling quickly. So we've got friends in all parts of the world. So this is really wonderful. It's a great chance for us to get together and do a little bit of stamping. So let's see. Jenny's a newbie. That's great. Kimberly says hello. Teresa says she shared. Thank you for sharing, Teresa. And yeah, please just post down in the comments and let us know how you shared. And then you'll be in for that $15 gift certificate. So today we have a stamp set that I really, really love, and I'm excited to show it to you. I'm always excited to show them to you. I'm an Altenewer, what can I say? So today we're going to be playing with the Darling Rose stamp set. Now this is a smaller stamp set. It's 4x6, and you've got a big, beautiful blossom on there. And the flower, the rose itself, measures it's about 3 inches in diameter. So it's a nice size to use. Let me just grab one here as a focal element all on its own on a card. You've got the leaves there as well. Because you also have the die collection, the coordinating dies, then of course it opens up a lot of design opportunities for you, and you can do some stamping, die cutting, and layering. So it gives you lots and lots of different opportunities. Once you kind of pair those combinations together, the stamps and the leaves and the dies, then of course it just takes you in lots of different directions. Super versatile. The Darling Rose, you've got the darling right here, and then it says hello there, so you could actually have it say hello there, darling. You've got 2 quotes on here, one from Picasso and one from Shakespeare. You can't go wrong there. And then another quote that says, even the most beautiful of flowers have to grow through dirt, which is very true. Sometimes we just have to remember that. So you've got some nice quotes, nice sentiments in there that these can be used for a thinking of you card. It could be a sympathy card. It could be a birthday card. It could be lots and lots of different card giving occasions, because a simple rose in a really nice style and a nice size like this is just a really versatile and easy to use for lots of occasions. So that's what we're going to be playing with. As I mentioned, you've got the stamp set. I always like to point this out because this is the packaging that comes with the stamp, and I always get inspired by the ideas in here. Sometimes it's just some coloring ideas. Sometimes it's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought maybe to do this with white embossing powder on black. So gives you a little bit of spark of inspiration in there too, which is really nice. Okay, so stamps and dies we're going to play with. Now, of course, with something like this flower and the leaves are perfect for coloring techniques. So whether you're coloring with, for example, colored pencils, you could use your artist markers, you could paint in with the metallic watercolors, regular watercolors. Today, I'm going to be using the water brush markers, these guys. And the set that I'm playing with today is the Winter Wonderland set. Not just for winter, of course, but for just about any occasion. So you can see the colors on here. What I like about this is that if you're coloring flowers, you've got, as you can see on here, well, actually, let me show you. I've got a swatch sheet that'll show you a little bit better. You've got your reds, oranges, and yellows, perfect for flower colors. Also, that Persian blue in there is a really nice flower color as well. And you've got your greens. So for people who like to do flowers, stamping and coloring flowers, this is a really good way to get your flower colors and your leaf colors. So there's a lot of variety in there. It's not just like one green, so you're stuck with one leaf color. You have a lot of options. These are a lot of fun to use. Now, there are lots of different color packs for the water brush markers. The other one that I've got that I use quite a lot is the Tropical Fiesta. And you can see here, here, you can see the different colors on here. And again, you've got lots of flower colors and two leaf colors, sweet leaf and lime. So the techniques that we're going to work with today, I'm using the Winter Wonderland, but any of the water brush markers will do the trick. And I'll talk about why I like these so much and how much fun they are to use and give you a couple of demos because that's what I'm using for my cards today. Okay, let's see, I'm gonna move this aside. And I've got several card projects to show you. I mean, we could really go on for a very long time tonight, but I suspect maybe you don't want to hang out with me all night or all day. So I'm going to do my best to try and keep things pretty efficient and yet still trying to show you as many different techniques and looks that you can get with the stamp set. So I'm going to start with this one here. And what I'm going to do is change my camera angle so that you can see my work surface, and then we'll just jump right into the card making. So nice to see everybody who has been jumping in. Great to see folks, Cece, Elizabeth, and thanks everybody who has been sharing. So hang in here with me. I'm going to switch the camera. There we go. And I think you can see that okay. And we'll get right into our crafting. So I'm going to start with this card as an example. And this is just a really basic coloring. We're going to use one of the brush markers to color the flower. But I want to show you how nicely it stamps and then just also kind of talk this design layout through for you. So I'm going to use my stamp positioner. You can use an acrylic block if that's what you've got. So it's not a layering stamp set, so it's pretty easy to get a good impression. I'm going to grab my stamp here, pop down my cardstock, and I'm just working with a smooth white cardstock here. And I'll pop my stamp down, and then I'm just going to grab this large leaf here and pull this off just so that you can see what the leaves look like too, or one of them anyway, when we're stamping. Okay, the ink that I'm using is the Obsidian pigment ink. I really like this one because it's a nice crisp black, and it also works really well with water-based medium like the water brush markers. So, well, that was good, Sarah. Get that ink all over my stamps and my hands. Okay, I'll just go ahead and ink this up and then stamp this. Okay, make sure and get in the middle of that flower, because again, it's a fairly substantial flower. It's about 3 inches in diameter. And you can see how beautifully this stamps out. It really does come out beautifully. Okay, so I'm just going to set aside my stamp positioner. Set that over there. And then I'm going to grab my water brush markers. Now, there are lots of different colors that I can work with. I'm going to be playing with the Citrus Burst for this. And then, let's see, for my leaves, I'm going to use the Mountain Mist. So 2 really nice soft colors. With the water brush markers, they've got a really nice fine tip, and I think you can see how detailed that tip is. This is really a nice benefit because it allows you to get into some of the detail areas of stamps. Now, this is quite a large stamp, so it's not quite so many small fiddly areas, but still it's nice to be able to make use of a pointy tipped brush just as you're going along the edges and so on. And the ink is flowing out beautifully. So you don't have to press this, squeeze it, unless you're decanting some of that watercolor onto your craft mat, which we will do later. I'm going to show you that technique as well. But for this, I'm just able to go over the stamped lines. Because I've stamped with my Obsidian, which is a pigment ink, not a dye ink. So if a dye ink, if I go over it with a watercolor or water-based medium, will probably smear. So this is just giving me a really nice effect. Quite quickly, quite easily as well. So there's that beautiful yellow. It's such a cheerful yellow color too. It's just a really nice, bright, and sunshiny yellow. And this is all I did for that, for those roses. So then with the Mountain Mist, same process. This is a really nice, soft green. And I'm just going to come in around here. And again, make use of that fine tip of the water brush marker to get into the edges and areas here. So I'm not doing any fancy shading or shadowing, really just base coating that in there. So there you go. And those 2 colors, of course, go together really nicely. And then all you need to do is bring in your dies. So again, the dies are perfectly set, of course, to match with the flower and the leaves. So all you do, grab your die, pop it down. I like to tape it down with a little bit of low tack tape, run it through the die cutting machine, and you will end up with pieces that look like this. So you're able to do lots of flowers to create a cluster. So I have these all overlapping here. And because of this, the size and the shape of the flower and the orientation, you're able to kind of direct your flower, have it pointing in different directions. So this one's kind of pointing this way, so is this one, but this guy is going off this direction. The leaves can kind of come up and overlap in there as well. So you can create a really nice focal grouping of your flowers as well. And the background that I have on here is a die that I love. This is the Layered Plaid Cover Die B, which is a mouthful. And I don't have the cover die A, but obviously if you have the A, as you can see on the package, and you have the B, you layer them together and you get a really beautiful plaid. So this one has been on my wish list for quite some time, but I'm quite content actually with just the B side because that's going to give you an effect like this. So if I die cut this from some yellow cardstock, pop this down onto my white background, and then add my stamped and die cut flowers on there, you can start to see how easily it is coming together. And then I've got my stamped sentiment on here. You can complain that roses have thorns, or you can rejoice that thorns have roses. So this is from Pablo Picasso. and fits in there perfectly and is also quite a nice sentiment to be thinking of as well. I've also got a little bit of the gold embroidery thread here. I have a couple of these spools from Altenew. Now this is the enchanted gold. There's an antique gold and there's a silver as well. I really love having just a little bow tied on and glued down. I think just makes a really nice accent piece on there. So you don't have to do that, but a little bit of gold embroidery thread, I think, can go a long way in just adding a nice little effect onto a card. So this is the first way, really quick and easy way to add in some color and some dimension into your cards. I'll point out as well that I've got this flower up here on some foam tape. I think you can see the dimension on there. So fun, easy, and a great way to focus on that pretty flower. Okay, so let's go into a little bit more coloring techniques. And hello to everybody who has joined us. I see we've got some folks from lots of different parts of the world. I think I just saw Bangladesh coming through, so welcome. And did I see Central America as well? I think I did. So Panama, Central America, Maxine, wonderful to see you as well. So thank you all for joining. Thanks for sharing. We've just dipped into the first card and we've still got lots of time actually. So I'm going to bring in another quick and easy coloring technique here with this card. Now we saw how nicely that flower stamps on here. And again, with this one, I was stamping with our Obsidian Black, that beautiful pigment ink, which is going to give us nice, rich contrast on there. And I've got another piece here that I've already pre-stamped. And you'll notice that I've got the leaves also on here. I didn't do any masking or anything. I'll show you that in the next card that I want to share with you. But as you can see here, they're just stamped to kind of barely touch the flower on there. But let's take a look at how to create different kinds of colors with your water brush markers. Okay, so I'm gonna pull out these two and let me see. Did I also use Lagoon? We'll have that out anyway. Okay, so I've got my rouge. I've got ruby red. I'm also going to be working again with the citrus burst. Now that's for the flower. And for the leaves, I'm gonna go with Lagoon. Now for this one, I want to have a couple of things on hand. I've got a mister bottle of water and underneath everything over here, the good old baby wipe packages. So I'm gonna have one of these out because I'm going to do a little bit of blotting with that. Okay, so I'm going to start with my rouge. And just like we did before, I'm just gonna pop down some color on here. I'm not worried too much about getting it perfectly colored because I'm gonna be adding in some other colors on top of this. So not perfect. Not even really worried about going to the edges. It's all going to be fine. Okay, you can see that really pretty color. And again, perfect for flowers. And I feel like I need to just squeeze this a little bit, keep that watercolor flowing. And again, just kind of scribble this on here. There we go. So when I say that I'm squeezing, I'm just gently pressing the side of the barrel. Again, you don't need to, don't need to squash it. You don't even need to really press it very often. Just every now and then as you're coloring some larger areas. Okay, so that's with the rouge. You can see I've not colored that in perfectly. It's got kind of a scuffy effect to it. And then I'm going to come in with my ruby red, which is a darker color. And just kind of following some of the lines that are on here. You can see where those black lines are, the detail that's been drawn onto the stamp. I'm just going to come along and kind of reinforce those. This does not require any shading skill or even really coloring skill. I'm just going along the lines here and allowing a little bit more emphasis. And actually that could be fine on its own as well. So now I've got the two colors on here. I'm going to come over this with the Citrus Burst. And this is going to soften things and give a bit of a halo effect, a little bit of a glow. So again, this is also going to cover up. This is where I'm covering up any of my white areas that might still be showing. This will not only add that pretty yellow on here, it will also kind of soften and blend the other colors. So I'm coming along here and around here in the edges too. Okay, so you can see how things are softening, they're lightening, it's getting a little bit more variegated in the colors. Then I've got my baby wipe on hand. I'm going to kind of crumple up or get a little bit of a ball effect here so that I can kind of pounce this color a little bit. I'm not trying to lift anything off. I'm really just kind of patting that color in there. And the moisture from the baby wipe will also help to soften some of these lines in here that I've drawn on with the ruby red. So that's going to give me a really soft, kind of a sunset effect. Then I'm going to come back with my leaves and I'll do the lagoon. Actually, no, I'm not going to do the lagoon. I'm going to do instead the mountain mist. That's the same color that I used before. And again, just adding my color in here. It's a really nice leaf color. I really like this. Okay, so I'm scribble coloring this in here. Again, not worried about going to the edges. I'm going to take a different section of this same baby wipe and just, again, just kind of pounce that color in there. Just soften it a little bit. You can, of course, soften things out by spritzing with water. We're going to do that with another technique, but you don't want the color kind of going everywhere. You just want to have it a little bit softer and a little bit more blended. So that's a great way that you can put 3 of your colors together. So the rouge, ruby red, and the citrus burst. Now, another thing that I have going on here, those of you who've joined me before, you know I love a good splatter on things. And this is where you can also take your water brush markers. I've got the mountain mist on hand. Now, when I spatter this, I'll probably get some splatters onto my flower. But if I didn't want that, I could stamp a mask. So this is just a piece from flower that I've stamped onto some scrap paper. And I can just set that on here so that when I tap, I'm careful not to get the flower itself. So I'm just holding the barrel, holding the water brush marker by the barrel and tapping gently. Okay, and then make sure to cap that. Can lift this off, and I've got some really nice kind of gentle spots on here. So you can do this before or after you stamp your sentiment. Sometimes I do the sentiment and then I'll just mask that off with a little bit of scrap paper as well, just to make sure I don't get a blob right on any of the letters there. So then with this one, what I've done is just simply wrapped the bottom area, again, using some of this embroidery thread, secure it on the back of the panel, and then glue the panel onto the front of the card. And again, I've got a little silver or gold metallic bow on here too, just to add another nice little effect. So 2 very different looks that you can get from your water brush markers, and just some pretty simple coloring effect. And even between the 2 of these, this one I did yesterday and this one that I just did here, you can see that this one's got a lot more of the yellow showing through. But you can get a variety of different looks, even with all of the same supplies that you've used. Okay, so project number 2, I'm just gonna kind of clean this up. I'm working on my Altenew craft mat, which is protecting my work surface, and it's also going to be my palette as well. So I'll show you how we're going to use that too for the next card. Okay, I'm going to grab this one. I'll set these pieces aside. As usual with lives and with it, pretty much all crafting, I end up with everything sort of like within a 12-inch space in here. So I'm going to be patting around for some of my other things, I can tell. Now with this card, we've done some blending with the water brush markers on the craft mat. So using it as a palette, because as you notice, there's no purple in the set. There is a beautiful Persian blue, and there's a ruby red. So blue and red together are going to offer us lots of different blending possibilities here. So let's take a look at how to do that. And that's also where we're going to get into some masking too. So let's get our stamping sorted, and then we can get into doing our coloring. Okay. So again, I'm going to bring in my stamp positioner. I didn't really clean my stamps off very well the last time, so I'm just going to give them a quick dab. I should have done that. I was too excited. Okay, so I've got that. And here I've got my plain white cardstock. I'm not using anything fancy. I'm not using a watercolor cardstock, although you could certainly do that if you wanted to. This is just a plain smooth white, though heavier weight cardstock, so it's not like a copier paper. And I'm going to set my flower here as my first step and get my magnets in place and stamp my first flower. And then I'm going to come back and do some masking. And masking is probably a technique that lots of you guys are familiar with. Some may be new to it though, so I always like to show this, especially with big flowers, because it's a great technique. Again, inking this up with my obsidian. Press that here. And then lift to make sure I've got the flower as stamped as I want it to go. Then remember this piece. So this is just the flower that I stamped onto some scrap paper and then cut out. And so what I can do here is just pop this, hold it down with my magnet. Again, clean my stamp somewhat anyway. And then I can position my stamp so that I will have one flower that looks like it's on top of or in front of another one. Such a simple technique, but a great one to use, especially with florals. Ooh, I could even follow, you can tell that I've used this mask for this before. So I can use that as my guide. Okay. Let me tack that down here. And ink this up again. And again, I'm using my obsidian. I'm using that for all of my stamping today. Okay, and pop that down. Now I have this going off of my cardstock a little bit, which will be nice. So then you can see when I remove this, I've got one flower that's slightly in front of the other one. Now I want to add in some leaves here too. So I'm going to put this back and let's clean off the flower and set that aside. And then I'll put one leaf here. And let's see, where are my other leaves? I'll get my other leaves on here as well. And again, just tucking this all, overlapping this flower so that it will look like the leaves are kind of nested in there. So let's see, this down like so. And again, just ink this up It's such a nice way to create depth on your card. Okay, here we go. And let me get my lid back on my ink pad. And it never fails. I will always end up with inky fingers, no matter how careful I am. But that's okay. That's part and parcel of stamping. Okay, I'm going to get my leaves cleaned and pop those back onto my sheet. And then we can take this off, set my mask aside. I do save the masks actually, because I just tuck them into the package, because you can always reuse these. So I always hang on to them. And now I've got my flower, 2 flowers, and a couple of leaves on here. Now what I wanted to show you is creating this soft and blended effect here on my flowers, on my roses. So these are actually a couple of different colors. So as I pointed out, there's no purple in this set, but it doesn't mean that you can't create your own. So I'm going to be working with the Persian blue and the ruby red, and working onto my craft mat. So the craft mat is not only to protect your work surface, it's also something that you can use as a palette. So I'm going to slide some things aside. Here I've got my Mr. bottle of water, and I also have my Altenew water brush. Now with the water brush, what you would do normally, is you twist the barrel. And you twist the barrel. This has been confusing for me and for some others too. You twist the barrel the way you wouldn't expect to twist it. So normally I would go to the right, but it's actually to the left. You untwist the barrel, fill this with water, and then put it back. Then put it back, going the other way. And then you can use this like your water brush markers. You can squeeze this and then the water will come out the tip. I like to use this just as a brush, as a paintbrush almost. So I very rarely will fill up the barrel. And what I'm just going to do here, get a little bit of that Persian blue and just scribble that right onto my craft mat. So a little dollop there. That's the Persian blue. Here comes the ruby red. And right next to it, I'll scribble a little bit on there too. I'm going to move aside my papers because I'm going to add some water here. And then what I can do is take that water brush, pick up some of the water, a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, and I can create my own watercolor. Now for this one, I wanted it to be quite watery, quite diluted. So I had a lot of water on my palette. The more water you use, the softer your color will be. So bear that in mind. Sometimes it's nice to start with a lot of water, a really watercolor look, and then add more detail. But the choice is yours. So I'm just kind of picking up some of the blue, mixing it with some of the water, and then coming back in here to pick this up. So nice, soft, pretty look. Let me get some more of that blue. I really like that. It's going to give you, in this case, it's giving me kind of a dusky rose. So bear in mind with your watercolors that you can use them straight out of the pen, as I've done. You can also mix and match them. Gives you even more freedom. You can see here, I want some more of that blue. I really like that blue. Add a little bit more blue up here. And some more water. I've got a little jar of water over here to the side too. Okay. This is also a nice way, even if you're not mixing your colors, that you can just simply dilute them. So if a color is brighter than what you want, If you want something a bit softer, don't hesitate to use your craft mat as your palette. And again, just scribbling on some color here. I'm going to go for a really watercolor look. So again, I'm not too worried about things being perfectly precise. Get some more of that purple on there. Soft and easy. So I think you can, oops, missed a little bit there. I think you can see that nice soft color. Now for the leaves, I'm going to get my water cup here and just clean off my brush. So I just have a little cup of water on hand. Clean off that brush, and then let's come back with some of the lagoon. Now the lagoon is quite a rich color. It's kind of a bluey green. It's really a nice color, but it's going to be too much in contrast with my soft colors on here. So again, missed some water. Pick that up and really dilute that color. So I still get the same kind of tone of that lagoon, but it's not as bold. And come back here and just, again, just scribble coloring in. Really open and easy. Now I'm going to grab a clean baby wipe and just kind of fold this in half. And then what I'll do is mist this. So it's going to reactivate a lot of that water that I have on here, a lot of that medium. And it's going to allow the colors to kind of bleed out, which is fine. And in fact, you can even add some more color. Now again, I'd mentioned I'm not using a watercolor cardstock, though you certainly could. But I do need to have a cardstock that is a nice sturdy weight. And then I can kind of blot away. Looks like I've got a little spill on there and kind of blot away any excess. Now this is pretty watery, so I'm going to definitely want to let this set aside to dry. You can speed up the dry time if you want to with a heat tool. If you notice that your paper is starting to curl, heat it from the top and then flip it, and so that you can heat it from, flip the heat tool so that you can heat from underneath, and that will give you a little bit more leverage on that paper curling. But then I just let this set to dry. When it's dry, if it's still a little bit wavy, then I can pop it underneath a stack of books, or actually underneath my cutting mat does the trick too. But do make sure that it is dry. Now here I've got the sentiment from Shakespeare. What's in a name that which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And you can see again, same color combination, same technique, but getting some very different looks. And I did do some more spattering on here as well. And that would actually be, if I did want to cut this part off, that would actually be quite a nice, easy way to disguise some of my little fingerprints or mistakes that I have on here. So quite easy to do, as you can see. So another really pretty and nice soft technique there. So if you like soft florals, that's going to be a good one for you. Okay, so I have two more techniques in one card project that I want to show you. So let me flip these over, and I'm going to leave this to dry. I'm going to set it over to one side. I'm leaving my puddle of color on here because I'm going to use that. And I'm going to use it to create this kind of background. So I've got a watercolor craft mat squash technique on my background. And then I've got some more painting on here on an embossed flower. So let's look at that first. Let's look at this background first of all. And I'm going to grab some cardstock up to one side. I am going to mop up that lagoon because I want to keep things mostly within this pink and blue, red and blue color scheme. Again, using my craft mat as my palette. And I can add some more water in here, really kind of get that nice and watery. I'm going to take my cardstock. Again, this is a quite sturdy cardstock. This would be beautiful with watercolor or a textured cardstock if you've got that on hand. Whatever it is, you need to have it be something that can accept a watery medium. So that's really the most important thing. So nothing too wispy. All you need to do is just tap it in. Now you can go for a light touch if you want to. So you can see I'm just gently tapping this. Turn it and tap it. See how it is. See what you like. If you want to have something that's a little bit less of an all-over color, what you can do is just work in some more. Here's some more of that Persian blue. Let's add a little bit more water to this. While this is still wet, you can pick this up and get some really pretty effects like this. So this is now quite wet. And while it is wet, I can let this dry. You'll notice it's kind of pooling at the edges. You can come along and just kind of mop up some of that with a baby wipe. You can also then, let's see, let me grab again, let's see, I'm going to grab the rouge and again do some tapping on here. Let those colors come together. And you'll see that they're interacting with that water. You can come back and again do a little bit of misting. You can also then start to take that baby wipe and do a little bit of blotting if you want to stop some of the movement of the water. But that's going to give you a really soft and pretty background. Now, when this dries, it will look a little bit different. It'll be a bit softer of an effect. So if you want to have a bolder look, just use less water. So the amount of water that you use is going to be how your color turns out. So bear that in mind. Again, you can zap this with a heat tool if you want to, or just let it air dry. But it's a great way to use up your extra color that you may have gotten onto your craft mat. Just grab a piece of cardstock and swoop up that color. And as you can see here, it makes a really nice background. Now on top of this, I've used another cutting die. Let's see, I'm gonna set this over so I don't set anything into it. And the die that I used there is also the Layered Plaid Cover Die B. But instead of having the entire piece, like we had with the yellow, I've got one here. It's with the white that I die cut from white. So die cut it as normal. And then what you can always do, grab a pair of scissors and cut irregularly along the edges. So you'll notice that it's not perfectly aligned and cut straight on here, but just allow a little bit of variation. You can snip it down as much as you want to. I like to cut off the larger areas here, the larger border. So some of the edges will be longer, some will be shorter. Having a hard time picking these up for some reason. Let's do this one too, give it a really kind of unfinished edge. And then when you put this down, I'm going to get something that has some contrast so you can see it's the back of the Misty. You can see that it will give you a really cool, interesting edge on things, and it creates a smaller platform area, but it does give you the chance to pop this onto a background piece. And again, instant portion of your background. And perfect place to put a die cut rose or flower on top of. Okay, so let's take a look at the flower and how that has been done. I think this is pretty much all mopped up here. Now for this one, I've created a resist effect, and this has been done with white embossing powder. So I stamped and heat embossed the flower and the leaves onto white cardstock with Altenews white embossing powder. And I'm going to tilt this a little bit. I know it's really hard because it's white on, or clear, excuse me, it's clear embossing powder, clear on white, which is difficult to see on a good day. But once we start adding color on here, things are going to pop out a little bit more. So I'm going to move this to the side and bring in my ruby red. Again, you can see that this is a favorite for the flower. And I'm also going to be using Mountain Mist for the leaves and also Lagoon. So both of these together. And all I need to do is just come in here with my ruby red and scribble that color on here again. So now that I've got my color on here, I think you can see how that white is popping out. So that's my resist effect. It's going to create, it almost is a little bit like a batik look. And again, utilizing that fine tip to add the water brush marker on here. That color is so rich and beautiful. And again, you can use it straight out of the pen like I'm doing here, but feel free also to do some water misting, which we are going to do, just to give a little bit of variety. So here you can kind of scribble it in. Because of the embossing, I've got a raised edge. So it means I don't have to worry about blurring any lines or going over the edge. And for this card, I knew that I was going to die cut the shape too, so I wasn't too worried about that. Just getting all of that color in there. It's such a pretty color. Here we go. And final bit here. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as it is, and then I will come in with my Mountain Mist and color my leaves. Okay, so I've got my color going in here. This is the Mountain Mist, one of my favorite leaf colors. I've got a lot of favorite Altenews leaf colors though. Parrot's a favorite, Frayed Leaf is a favorite. It's hard to choose one. Okay, so I have my flower and I've got my leaves colored, and you can see that resist there. Now what I want to do is give this a little bit more variety. So I'm going to bring back in my water mister, and I do have a baby wipe on hand somewhere here. Not that one. Let me grab a new one. And I'm going to mist this. Now when I do this, you can start to see that the color, certainly in this area, is lifting a bit. So I'm going to let the water react with that ink, or react with the watercolor, so you can see how this is lifting a little bit. It's going to be giving it a little bit of a variegated look. So I'm just going to let that react. I'm going to check and see how everybody's doing. I haven't had a chance to check out all of the comments so far. Love that you don't have to be too careful when watercoloring. Yes, that is my type of coloring too, Dee. Absolutely. Oh, and we've got hello from Scotland. Oh, well, you know what? Better late than never. We're glad that you're here. Sue was wondering, am I going to use the stencil for the set? Sue, I only have the stamp and the die, so that's what I'm going to be using. Do you have the stencil? I think there's a mask for this set too. I do like those masks, though, I have to say. Those are a lot of fun. Okay, now I've got my water reacting on here. I'm just, again, just going to gently pounce this. I don't want to remove too much of the color. Just kind of want to tap, tippy tap in here. Again, I'm always turning the baby wipe just so that I can get a little bit of a bleached look in here. And as always, it's going to look different when it dries. Okay, so what about my leaves here now? I've got my leaves, a very pale color. What I wanted to do is come back, and now I've got the lagoon, which is the darker color. And I'm just going to shimmy this on here, going along the, I'm never sure what it's called, the center of the leaf. I always want to say that it's the spine of the leaf, but that's probably not, I'm not a botanist, you guys. I don't know the technical term. I'm the person who managed to kill a cactus. So clearly flowers for me and plants are only of the Altenew variety. Says I should not be trusted. So I don't know what the center of a leaf is called. So if someone knows, please enlighten me. I want to do well with flowers and plants. I just am not so inclined, unfortunately. So I'm kind of tippy tapping this in here. Now, again, I've got a bit of a mess, or what it might look like a mess. I've got some edges on here. I'm not too worried about this, for one thing, because it's a watercolor effect. For another thing, because I know for the card, I'm going to come through with my dies, get the tape off of these, and position the dies on here and then run them through my die cutting machine. So I'm not too worried about the edges not being perfect or that I've got a little bit of overlap on here. Totally fine with that. The one thing I do urge you, though, if you're doing this technique, make sure that this is completely dry before you run this through your die cutting machine. Anything that you're die cutting, do make sure it's dry. Otherwise, when you're putting your dies down, if you're like me and you're using some tape to kind of tack these down in place, the tape will get squashed onto the paper. It can tear really easily. And you can also end up with kind of stretched paper too. Paper can be stretched and is pretty flexible. So let's see. Oh, Sue also, oh, you kill African violets. I haven't tried that. I never intend doing any plant killing. I really don't. But it also means that I don't know the technical terms for things. Okay, so back to what I can tell you about, which is the technique. Then I go ahead and die cut these. So when this is all dry, the color has been set, then I have a really soft and pretty look. And it really is thanks to that embossing powder. It's going to give me the shine and the resist on here, but also just a really nice and simple effect. So these have all been die cut, as has the rose. This is all up on foam tape on top of that background. So now this background has dried by now, pretty much, but take a look at how different the look is. Again, using the same colors, using the same technique, you're going to get a different look every time, which is really the fun of it. It does allow a little bit of freedom and spontaneity, but also because you're just working onto your craft mat, it's super easy and pretty easy to clean up as well. So if you don't have a lot of room in your crafting area, you don't like to get too messy, this is a great technique, even though your hands may end up like mine. Then let's see I had a couple of other things I wanted to show you with that same look. When I was doing my my craft mats pickup or squashing or whatever you want to call it, I came up with this the other day, which I think is also really cool, just a really fun and pretty look. So as you can see from these splatters here, I didn't have a lot of water on there, so I was able to get some more of the distinct shapes. This one I thought, oh, what would happen if I splattered it with black ink? And that's the answer. You get a splattery black ink. But of course, that's going to wick out a little bit. So I wasn't too sure about that one, but I thought, you know, when you're putting things on top of it and layering, it might also add kind of a fun look. So some other options, some other ways that things can come out. Oh, cat fur. Oh, sorry about that, guys. It's the hazard of having two cats that live in my crafting area. So that is another technique that I wanted to show you. Again, a little bit of the gold embroidery thread. Here's a stamped sentiment and lots of little sequins. So the sequins are some that I love to use. These are the antique gold. There's also a satin gold that I like very much to use, but they come in these little vials and they're really great fun just to add in little clusters onto the front of your card. Okay, I know we're coming up on an hour and I do not have time to squeeze in another demonstration, although I totally would if I could, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I do want to show you one other example. This is a really quick and easy way to use the rose stamp and the leaves. So I've got gold embossing on here, no coloring. So the gold embossing is my favorite, the rose gold. And this has just been stamped with the Altenew embossing ink pad, gold embossed, and then die cut on here. So if you are looking for something quick, simple, and elegant, you can't go wrong with gold embossing a rose. I really think that's one of those kind of go-to card making or card giving motifs. Now, in this case, I've had it say hello there and then congrats. The congrats, let me show this one to you. You guys have probably seen me use this a million times too. This is the signature words die, and you've got hello, thanks, and congrats. I use these all the time. I love them. So I've just got that layered on here. Again, some more of the sequins. The background is another big die. And this is the gradient stripes die. So this is a really nice one to die cut. You just pop it onto the front of your card. And like with our plaid, you've got an instant kind of surface or an area to anchor your flower onto. So it's not necessary, but it's really nice when you're die cutting to have something of interest sort of going on in the background. So this is just a quick one. I wanted to be able to show this to you. I know many of you already know how to do heat embossing. So I figured if I could just sneak this in and just show it to you, that would give you another nice idea. And again, layered up with some of the sentiments on the stamp set. Okay, so we have done, it's been a whistle-stop tour of the Darling Rose. So I've shown you embossing, we've done some watercolor, some other mixing and blending on the stamp as we're painting it, and some really nice basic stamping on here too. So I hope you guys have had a great time. I have a very messy area here, which seems to mean to me that I've had a lot of fun. So I hope you have too. What I'm going to do is just quickly tilt back up the camera so we can see each other again. And just check for some comments on here. Teresa was asking, what kind of paper did you use to cut the gradient die? It looks like vellum from here. No, it is pink cardstock, Teresa. It's just a pale pink cardstock. So no, it's not vellum. Nancy says, saves the cutouts from the gradient cover plate. Yes, I know. Check it out. So I keep them in here, and you are right. You have instant sentiment strips. Great idea. Okay, you guys are gonna get me again here. So nice to see everybody, all of the comments. I'm just kind of scaling through. Okay, things are looking good. Thank you for sharing. Well, thank you for being with us, Xiomara. We're always really happy to see you. Glad to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know we had a lot. It was like this technique, this. But I think it goes to show with a little 4x6 stamp set and the coordinating die, and if you're Sue, you have the mask too. There's just a lot that you can do with this. This is one of those stamp sets that I'm always thinking like, For friends who are interested in stamping or friends who do stamp but have lots of different styles that they like to do, this is one of those sets that can go in a lot of different directions. So you can go clean and simple, you can go classic, you can go a little bit more mixed media and bring in some other types of coloring mediums, or you can just gold emboss it and you're ready to go. We were also working with the Winter Wonderland brush marker set. As I mentioned before, we used almost all of them except for the 4 darker colors. There is just a lot that you can do with these as well, not just straight in coloring like we did for the yellow rose, but also to do some blending. You may get this, or you may get this. It just depends on what you're working with. And that you can also do some mixing of your colors too, if you want, as they say in the UK, bespoke colors, customized colors. You can do craft mat squash and get some really cool backgrounds. And you can also work with resist techniques. And last but not least, quick and easy gold embossing works every single time. So wonderful to see everybody. Beverly, it's super nice to see you. I was thinking about you the other day. Beverly is coming in from the Netherlands, so it's great to see you, Beverly. I hope you're well. Hope all of the rest of you are well too. Thank you to Joanna for keeping up with us and letting us know all of the wonderful products that we are playing with today. Hope you get a chance to play with something creative this weekend. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, wherever you are in the world. Thank you to all the new folks who have joined us. I do hope that you have enjoyed this, and I hope you will join us next time. And for all of the new Altanewers who are joining in too, you are so very welcome, and we're just delighted that you're here. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Joanna. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and I will catch you guys again next time. So take care.